She blames everyone but herself for her problems, and she probably also blows townies. Welcome to Recotopia, a happy home for recommended movies, TV shows, music, video games, foodstuffs, and more from three people you can definitely trust. Trustability varies by region, no guarantees implied. And now, here are your hosts, Chris Atkinson, Jeremy Scott, and Aaron Dicer.
Why don't you just marry Carmine, get a little gold microwave, and put it on a chain around your neck? You want to be more like Carmine? Why don't you build something like he does? Instead of all your empty deals, it's just like your fucking science oven. You know, I read that it takes all of the nutrition out of our food. It's empty, just like your deals. Empty, empty.
Hello, everybody. It's episode 160 of Recotopia. I'm Chris Atkinson, joined by Jeremy Scott.
Hello, all.
And joined by Aaron Dicer.
Hidely-ho, Como-Verinos.
Oh, yeah, the Como-Verinos. Yeah, that's it. Today's big recommend is American Hustle. Would also like to welcome chat who have come out here to watch us talk about movies on a Tuesday. Let's start us off with some small recommends. And Jeremy, take it away.
It's no big deal.
Itty bitty living space.
It's so small and light. It's small, it's tiny, it's petite, it's wee.
Small. Do you know James A. Caster?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
A comedian from Great Britain. I really love James A. Caster. My brother's family introduced my wife and I to him several years ago, and we've seen all the specials we can get our hands on. You may be familiar with Cold Lasagna, Hate Myself, 1999, which is probably his most famous touring special. Lots of clips from that have gone viral, especially where he goes after edgy comedians who like to punch down.
Yep.
And he is a very good dude with a very good heart. Well, Hecklers Welcome is a Max special. James A. Caster hates being heckled. He hates anything that interrupts or disrupts or doesn't go to plan. He's anal retentive about his comedy, much in the way Michael Richards was on Seinfeld. So this special is his attempt to get way outside his comfort zone and literally encourage heckling. And he sets forth some rules where he's not allowed to pick on people who don't heckle, meaning people who get up to go to the bathroom or something. And he can throw somebody out of the show if they're violent or use hate speech. But otherwise, anything goes. And if you like James A. Caster, I think you'll really, really enjoy this. If you want to see a comedian heckled to death, you're not going to see it. The interesting thing that happens here is that he's such a good dude, people don't really want to heckle him. People don't really want to trip him up. And he does have like some anxiety and stuff. And so there are heckles, but they're generally harmless and friendly. One even calls back to a joke earlier in the show, and Acaster says, it's nice to have a heckler who appreciates structure. I just really like spending time with him and hearing his stories. In this special, the stories are basically about how he came to comedy, and it goes way back to childhood. And he tells these various different stories that shaped him as a comedian. So it may not be as laugh out loud as the last special, and it's not going to be, let's watch this guy really eat crow, because people love him too much. But I really had a good time. I've never had a bad time with an Acaster special, but I wanted to make this a recommend for those who have Max.
It kind of goes to show when you welcome hecklers, you're not going to get the best hecklers. You know, like you can't, I mean, obviously you can't just, you know, like have this kind of a special and hope the best hecklers in the world come without the title or whatever. But like, yeah, I mean, if you invite people to do it, people are like, now they're just trying to come up with their best material or whatever, and it just doesn't work in that whatever. But yeah, I'd like to see this quite a bit. He's very funny. I've seen at least one or two specials of his.
He's great. He's so good on his feet too. So it it will be in, I haven't seen this one, by the way. I didn't realize it was out there, so I'll have to check this out. But it'll be interesting to see him engage with the audience more. I kind of fell into another level of love with him when he was on Taskmaster, which is one of my favorite shows. He was on the panel of Taskmasters in Series 7 and was just so hilarious, just in every challenge, every moment, every conversation. It's nice when, like a stand-up comedian, you just like, oh, that's just a really funny dude who's fun to hang around. That's so that just makes it even more fun. So yeah,
he's on an episode of Great British Bake Off or whatever they call that show. My wife is obsessed with that show. She's like, I've never seen that episode. I've got to find it.
Yeah, good stuff.
Aaron, what do you got?
I saw the Umbrellas of Cherbourg. This is Jacques Demy. It's a French musical, more an opera than a musical, actually. Like, I think my understanding of the distinguish, and I could be wrong on this, is a musical has songs that are story points that are sung about, whereas an opera is everything is sung. Every single word of dialogue, hello, whatever, is sung. And so it's more operatic in that way, in that everything is not a song, but sung in this movie. What really, really struck me about this film, other than I love musicals and the music is beautiful, is the color in this movie is mind-blowing. Like, you don't realize how little of the palette most cinematographers color with when it comes to, especially like bright and vivid colors. And then you watch something like this and you're like, wow, these wallpapers and these clothes, and it's an absolutely gorgeous movie to watch. It's also it's a pretty typical story of boy meets girl, girl meets boy, they fall in love, boy goes to war, what happens next? Is there
The Notebook?
It's not The Notebook, but it's also not necessarily breaking any new ground with the plot. However, the characters are authentic, believable, even as they're singing. Catherine Deneuve, I believe, is just stunning in this and so good. This is definitely worth a watch. If musicals aren't your thing, maybe that'll annoy you. I don't know, but man, I really enjoyed watching this movie. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I can't remember what episode it was. I think I have small recommended this before. Recently in the last 3 months saw this on the big screen at our local Belcourt. And there is a 4K coming out on Criterion at some point, and talk about a movie that will benefit greatly from that. But it's almost talk singing in a way. It's everybody's just kind of singing the things that they the dialogue and everything. But I don't know. I need to look this up. I don't know what international films had to deal with censorship and whatever. Like, they didn't have to deal with the Hays Code in their own countries or whatever, but they still, I feel, had to follow that to get a movie out here. But there's still some just interesting flourishes where they don't really come right out and say these two people had sex, or they're going to show them have sex or whatever. But there's a scene in there where she and her boyfriend are like, this is their first moment being alone and everything, and they get into the room, and then there's this like the stop, and the edits just go to the outside of the house, out to this, out to that, and it just tells you everything you need to know without actually showing it and everything. And I love this. This is another one of these. This is a movie too that does not follow romantic conventions, romantic film conventions, and I really love that too. You're people who are looking for something completely different from your average romantic comedy or whatever. This isn't really a comedy, but like, the usual stuff, are going to be very surprised at how this movie tells its story. So
I agree.
I would second this one.
Nice. And my and it is funny. Our biggest laugh. I watched this with my wife. Our biggest laugh was, speaking of sex, our biggest laugh was when there's a pregnancy involved, and she's telling her mom that she's pregnant or whatever, and her mom goes, "How did this happen?" And she sings her response, "I assure you, it was in the usual way," which I just thought was,
Yep.
I just thought that was one of the funniest things. So yeah, good stuff. Check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I revisited a movie from the 90s. If you guys remember, the Wachowskis, before The Matrix, made a movie called Bound. And this is a really good movie, and you can see why they were hired to do some big, huge action film after this. I mean, it's obvious from looking at it. This is a very 90s independent movie. It's got very spare sets and characters and everything like that, but they do amazing wonders with it and everything. This movie is about Jennifer Tilly is married to this gangster played by Joe Pantoliano. He wants to get money from this guy. They shake this guy down. There's Christopher Maloney plays the son of a gangster, of the main gangster, who goes a little bit too far and kills the guy. And so there's this whole big thing where they get the money from the guy they killed, but the money's got all this blood on it, and so Joey Pants has to go back and literally launder the money to make it look clean and everything like that. Meanwhile, Jennifer Tilly has met Gina Gershon, who is hired as sort of like a building maintenance person or something like that, and they start a relationship, and they come up with a plot to steal the money and somehow get away with it. I'll leave it there. You don't want to know too much about the plot on this movie, but this is an outstanding movie. I don't know what happened to the Wachowskis. Got into this real philosophical I don't know, haze after The Matrix, like everything except for Speed Racer, obviously, but everything that came out with after this, just there's nothing like Bound or the first Matrix. And then it just kind of, I don't know what happened. This is a great movie. I don't know how many people have seen this, but I highly recommend it.
Man, I have seen Bound twice, but probably not once in the last 20 years. And all I remember is that it's great. I need to get back to it and see it again.
Yep.
Yeah, I saw it a while ago, and remember having the same thought as you, Chris, in that this is so different than what I've seen the Wachowskis do since then. And they did. I think the Matrix put them into a little of philosophy. That is part of the Matrix as well, is dealing with all sorts of different philosophies, kind of, put stuff on the screen and let it be symbolism and metaphor and those kind of things. And I think maybe that just got stuck in their head. But you're right, Speed Racer feels like the only one that was just a movie after that. It wasn't trying to be something super deep.
Didn't they do Jupiter Ascending? I guess that was trying to be deep.
It was, yeah. It really felt the same way. It felt like they were doing all that same stuff. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. All right, let's get on to our big recommend, which is American Hustle, and this was Jeremy's pick. So, Jeremy, take it away.
I'm fine. It's just that you're so big.
It's so huge.
It's a good rule, but this is bigger than rules.
It's bigger on the inside.
Is it? I noticed.
All right, American Hustle is a dark comedy crime film inspired by the real-life ab scam operations of the 70s and 80s that opens with the cheeky title card, "Some of this actually happened." We open on Christian Bale's Irving, a balding man with a prominent gut, as he brushes his comb-over hair and dresses himself while listening to the news. What we don't know at the time is that we're doing Aaron's favorite trick, an opening in medias res right before a big undercover operation. Amy Adams' Sydney suddenly makes an arrival, wearing a kind of dress, and then Bradley Cooper's Richie says aloha and barges in angry at Irving. Irving is mad because he thinks Richie slept with Sydney, but Richie says, "I never laid a hand on her." And then Sydney casts doubt by saying, "That's not technically true." And then Richie says, "We never had sex, okay?" And it's honestly a lot of information, and I'm going to make a ruling on this right now, that this movie did not need to open in medias res. All right.
I agree.
Richie then fucks up Irving's hair because Richie is a dickhead. And the only reason I'll allow the whole in medias res thing is because we get Steely Dan's Dirty Work under the slow walk to the con and under the main title, and opening credits. Everyone shakes hands vigorously with Jeremy Renner, who's playing Mayor Carmine from Camden, New Jersey. Richie eventually tries to slide over a briefcase full of money, but Carmine is put off and leaves the room. Richie sends Irving after Carmine to bring him back, and we get a bit of Irving voiceover about learning how to survive. Shit, now we're in Irving's past, where he throws rocks through windows to drum up business for his relative's glass replacement business. We then jump forward 45 years, holy whiplash, Batman. And now middle-aged Irving owns the glass business and a couple of dry cleaning businesses and does some stolen and fake art dealing on the side. And I guess we are now fully out of that Days of Future Past style opening and now firmly settled in the film's main timeline. Christ. Irving goes to a party at his friend Sid's house, and the party looks rad, and I'm just jealous I'm not there. And this is where Irving meets Sydney. They immediately bond over Duke Ellington's music because she has a bracelet with Ellington's picture on it. And as Irving sits there in the back room playing her a Duke Ellington record in short shorts and an open short sleeve shirt revealing his less than chiseled physique, I realize that I wish I had half this American Psycho's confidence. Sydney is more interested in ambition and grift than she is whether or not beer bellies exist, so she is attracted to Irving. Her voiceover even says he wasn't necessarily in good shape, and he had this comb-over that was rather elaborate, but he had this air about him, this confidence that drew me to him. Gentlemen in the audience, confidence is more likely to keep the ladies enchanted than looks. He takes her around to his dry cleaning stores to show off and also offer her free clothes, which turn out to be a powerful aphrodisiac for Sydney, who seems to really love kind of wearing dresses. Eventually, he shows her his real business, the Art Con office. But she's offended by the criminal aspect and storms out, before storming back in moments later and introducing a character I think she's been working on for a while, but regardless, it's an English lady with royal banking connections, and it's clear now that she's disenchanted enough to be down to con some people out of their money. And also Amy Adams does a pretty great English accent. She is the master manipulator of men, and together they make a pretty awesome team, conning desperate men looking for a get-rich-quick scheme out of their money problems while falling further in love with each other over their mutual awesomeness at conning people. Irving says, "When I was around her, I felt joy. Fucking joy." Speaking of joy, Irving's actual wife, Rosalind, is trying to defend her parenting by telling Irving the fire is out, while half of her face is burnt to shit. This is actually a perfect introduction to Rosalind because, like my college girlfriend, she blames everyone but herself for her problems, and she probably also blows townies. We fight and we fuck, and that's what we do. That's our thing, Rosalind says, to which any single man would reply, "Fine by me, let's stay married." But in this movie, signals trouble in the marriage. Ultimately, Rosalind overcomes Irving's concerns by stripping and seducing him. The next victim for Sydney and Irving turns out to be Vice undercover FBI agent Richie. He says he really needs money, and he's got some cars and a boat and a piece of land, but Irving's kind of jealous of all the time Sydney has already spent with this guy. But once Richie starts begging and shows a check, they relent, and pretty soon Sydney has been arrested for identity fraud. It's harsh times for Sydney as Richie tries turning her against Irving by essentially telling her the truth about how Irving is using her. But she doesn't budge, so Richie turns his attention to Irving, pressuring him to be an FBI asset in exchange for letting Sydney out of jail. He's trying to take them down a nightmare alley, and they don't have any other options. Once out of jail, Sydney and her big eyes insist that they take the mattress money and leave the country immediately. But Irving can't leave his adopted son behind because Irving has a really insane moral system. After a fight, they agree to do 4 busts for Richie and then get out from underneath law enforcement. Sydney declares she's going to seduce Richie to make all of this happen. The con artists next take Richie to an art gallery with, quote-unquote, the Sheik, who's actually Irving's friend Al from Queens, to make a point about how the con works. Irving also shows Richie a famous painting and claims it's a fake, then asking who the better artist is, the original painter or the one that duplicated it perfectly. The painting is almost surely real, but this is the moment when Richie should have realized he was already being played. We cut to Carl, Irving's associate, and he wants in on the job, but Irving says no, and instead asks for some special certificates. The voiceover says, the more you tell people no, the more they want to hear. Carl eventually spits out that Carmine Polito is a good target for a bribe operation. This is when we meet Richie's boss, Thorson, who is regrettably played by Louis C.K. Thorson doesn't want Carmine Polito to be a target because everyone loves Polito and he has a great reputation. Richie asks for $2 million in a Chase bank account to verify that the Sheik is real. Thorson pushes back. He starts telling an ice fishing story, but Richie tries to finish the story for him by predicting its ending. That causes Thorson to shoot down the Carmine thing and stop telling the story. But then Sydney/Edith introduces Richie to a woman she's been befriending at the Bureau who is excited to help an FBI investigation for real, and she wires $2 million into an FBI account at Chase. Richie is impressed by how well Edith has this lady wrapped around her finger, all while completely ignoring his own body slowly wrapping around the same finger. Enter prosecutor Amato, who wants to be famous by making a big bust. He calls Thorson to commend him on the operation to go after Carmine Polito. In football, and I think in porn, this move is called the end around. Now Richie's boss, Thorson, has to accept the investigation. Then we get an excellent debate between Irving and Richie about how important the quality of the hotel suite is for the meeting between Carmine Polito and the Sheik, where Edith announces to Irving that she and Richie already got the money in an account. And it's dangerous that she would hide that from Irving, but also arguable considering this movie's finale that Irving already knew and was maybe acting surprised. Anyway, after he leaves, Edith and Richie flirt and touch and almost kiss until Richie pulls back, somehow turning off the power of his boner and leaves. And at this point, we have caught up to the unnecessary in medias res opening as Carmine sees the briefcase of cash as the threat that it is and leaves, and the prestige of their operation has worn off. Irving goes after him to try and turn him around, and this is the scene here that shows how fucking good Irving is at finding people's buttons and pushing them. The only manipulator better in this movie is Sydney. But even she didn't reach her peak until she met Irving. Irving starts by bonding over their shared living areas from their past and some spicy clams local to that area. He makes no bones about the fact that the briefcase does contain cash, but he insists they have to grease you directly. Carmine is charmed by Irving and says he'll deal with him directly. So he returns and takes the money. Carmine thinks he's representing the town. Meanwhile, Richie is upset that Carmine only wants to deal with Irving. We then cut to Irving and Rosalind at dinner with Carmine and his wife. They talk about favors versus money, while their wives talk about being wives, and topcoats and perfume. He brought Rosalind, hoping she had no hard feelings about having been left at home for all the previous such winings and dinings, and he was super wrong about that. Edith and Richie go dancing and make out, despite half of her dress being missing. I think I've made that joke 3 times now. They end up in a bathroom stall, nearly having sex before promising each other to be real and not have sex until they are fully in love. Which is good, because a nightclub bathroom stall probably has some random sharp objects lying around. Mm-hmm. The evening ends with a huge group sing of Delilah by Tom Jones, which only further serves to bond Carmine and Irving. At this point, Carmine gifts Irving a microwave, a.k.a. a science oven. And Irving says, "You specifically bought this science oven from me?" And Carmine says, "Yeah, a new friend." And I think it's implied here that Carmine did not buy that science oven specifically for him, but got it out of some kind of gangster-led stolen truck situation. And that Irving is kind of saying, "So you're cool with a little light crime then?" And Carmine is saying, "Indeed." We then cut to Richie telling Thorson that he needs a jet at Teterboro. He says it repeatedly. It's for the Sheik. He gets permission to use a small private jet to take off and land at the airport, just to fool Carmine. He then requests the end of the ice fishing story, but again interrupts before he hears the end of it. And if you think you're hearing the end of this ice fishing story before the end of the movie, then you are a sucker. Rosalind nearly burns down the house by putting metal in the science oven, despite Irving's warning not to do that very thing. Rosalind somehow turns this into Irving's fault, berating him for not creating something, despite the income that funds her and her son's home and the free science oven he gave her that she destroyed. And I realize this is the point, but Rosalind is the worst. She should not have custody of a child. We then jump to the meeting of Carmine and the Sheik at the airport, where Edith kisses and nuzzles Richie, and Irving struggles to see how much of it is her playing a role and how much is her enjoying it. They proceed to argue. She implores him to just do his job and finish the comm. Everyone in on the undercover op is shocked to learn that the FBI agent sent to play the role of the Sheik is not Arabic. Prior to the big party for the Sheik, Rosalind worms her way into the thing, which sets up conflict, but we also get Goodbye Yellow Brick Road from Elton John on the way here. And we get to see Richie show up hand in hand with Edith, who stares at Rosalind, and then Rosalind says, "I know who you are, and oh my God, this is going to be amazing." While all the guys debate who should go talk to the gangsters at the bar that they need to connect with in order to build casinos, Rosalind seizes the moment and confidently walks over and strikes up a conversation with them. Irving and Richie and Carmine soon join them. However, there's a surprise as Irving and company and the Sheik are taken into a back room. Suddenly, they're at a table with none other than Victor Tallagio, who is no joker. And they have to sell their story to this mob boss who represents the family, or else their plan is nothing but stardust and they're left playing hide and seek. The entire back and forth it's hard to know what the score is. De Niro's Tellagio ultimately dares the Sheik to speak Arabic by speaking Arabic directly to him. And after one of the slowest rolls in all of film history, the non-Arabic FBI guy, pretending to be the Sheik, speaks Arabic back to Tellagio because he just happens to know it. And holy shit, with that sudden performance, a star is born. The deal is made, and now they are out of the furnace and into the fire. As White Rabbit plays, Sidney approaches Rosalind and asks her to come with, but it doesn't work, and the two men hate each other from across the room, and they are now public enemies. Later, Sidney follows Rosalind into the restroom, and they scream at each other and say hurtful and evil things, and now I kind of regret having anticipated this face-off. Rosalind storms off in tears as Al Green's How Can You Mend a Broken Heart plays, and she runs straight into the arms of the handsome gangster because Rosalind is nothing if not constantly problematic. And all of this was going down prior to a rally for Carmine, who goes on to give a speech while Irving takes pills for an apparent heart condition, and Carmine bets the house on this plan, but only for the best of intentions. The next morning, despite the massive hangover, Richie shows up at Sidney's apartment and calls his boss to request the Sherman Suite at the Plaza Hotel for the scam. When told no, he loses his shit and screams at Thorson, and then seeks comfort in Sidney's arms. He begins to seduce her, but she says it's not time, but he tells her he loves her. Then she asks if he wants the truth, and he says yes, and she loses the English accent and starts speaking with her American accent. She confesses the Edith ruse, and it freaks Richie out something good. She says she created Edith to survive, but now she's done with all that, and I do kind of think she's being honest here. I do think she means this. That's up for discussion later. But at the same time, if she's faking, it wouldn't surprise me because she's able to play basically anybody she wants in this movie like a fiddle. Then Richie gets romantically aggressive and screams, and Sidney hits him over the head with a picture frame. Just then, Irving shows up with a gun, saying they're all screwed because now they have to deal with Tellagio. But ultimately, Richie takes off to find his boss. Irving and Sidney have a heart-to-heart and agree to get over on everyone else around them. This is where we learn that, between the two of them, Sidney is really the fighter. When Richie arrives at the FBI field office, he beats up Thorson with a telephone, and it's not fair to the boss character, but it is poetic justice to see Louis C.K. for once be the one getting hit in the face by a dick. At the meeting with Amato, Richie proves limitless as he seizes the proceedings from Thorson, mentions Tellagio's involvement, and Amato immediately forgets the assault. Amato says no to the $10 million for Tellagio, but yes to the use of the Sherman Suite. With Congress people start to go down, only then does Irving start to have misgivings about what they're doing to Carmine, who he has come to care about. Carmine doesn't even know he's lying when he tells the Marks, "This is real. On my family, on my kids, this is real." And while Irving's ripped off plenty of folks before, he had never had extended contact with any of them. This one's going to hurt. He gets so bothered, he has to leave the room. We then see that Rosalind has been spending time with the mustachioed gangster from the other night, holding hands, having dinner by the water. He encourages her to leave Irving, and then Rosalind spills that the curly-headed guy is IRS, because she is both stupid and vindictive. This leads directly to Irving basically getting kidnapped and threatened by the mafia until he promises to prove the Sheik's investment is real. But while that's going on, Rosalind sings along to Live and Let Die while half-assedly cleaning her house. And given Rosalind's recent actions, I'll admit Live and Let Die is a bit on the nose, but it's still a great song and a great scene capped off by Irving returning and ripping into her for his near-death experience. He then falls down and has to take his pills again, and as Rosalind finally calms down and asks what's going on, he tells her he has a plan to save them all, including her, but she has to shut up. Rosalind then says she sent Pete to threaten him on purpose so that he'd come up with this new plan. She agrees to stop talking to the mobster, but wants a divorce because she's ready to be the ex. And now the big finish, kicked off with the Long Black Road by Electric Light Orchestra as all the chess pieces are moved into place. Irving, Sidney, and Richie are dressed to the nines. Irving's voiceover tells us that Victor Tellagio is too big a mobster to meet at a hotel, only at the office of his attorney. Outside the attorney's office, we see Sidney aggressively frisked way too far up her skirt while the men are only gently patted down. They are then led into attorney Alphonse Simone's office. And here is an ingenious magic trick the movie pulls off because they introduced us to this man so long ago and so briefly and in such different circumstances that most of us won't even recognize him here the first time through the scene. So we, like Richie, think everything is on the up and up. However, Richie is immediately and rightly concerned that Victor Tellagio himself isn't there. The attorney says that Tellagio was called out of town on business. Richie stands to leave, but Sidney implores him to wait and says we can call the Sheik. see what he says. So Richie agrees, but only after getting Tellagio's attorney to basically agree to commit a bunch of crimes to keep this development on task. This puts Richie at ease, and he places the call to the Sheik, who is actually Amato, who is so horny to arrest Tellagio, he authorizes the wire of the $2 million, even though Tellagio isn't at the meet. Richie smiles the smile of a man who thinks he's won, and everyone shakes hands. He thinks he's a maestro orchestrating all this, but it's really just happening, and he's just on the road along for the ride. In one of my favorite scenes, Richie returns to the FBI office to the complete adoration of everyone but Thorson. He makes a big deal out of replaying the audio of the lawyer saying, "We'll pay someone off, we'll lean on someone." And then he does a pretty bad but still hilarious impression of Thorson's pouty body language. We next cut to Irving being honest with Carmine about the con and all the lies and confessing to giving Carmine the shaft. He wants to face him like a man, which is kind of stupid because there's no universe where Carmine eventually forgives him simply because he faced him like a man. It's a vain attempt on Irving's part to find some kind of self-forgiveness. He tells Carmine he has a plan to help him, but Carmine orders him out of the house loudly and repeatedly and eventually strikes him until Irving actually leaves. And this whole scene is worth discussion because Irving has somewhat noble motives here, but is kind of misguided. Anyway, Irving loses his equilibrium and collapses again outside the house, and Sidney gives him his heart pills and helps him to the car. They then head to Amato's office to meet with him, Richie, and Thorson. They're questioned about where the FBI's $2 million is, but they plead ignorant. They learn that Amato has received a call just now that in exchange for Irving and Sidney walking and Carmine getting a reduced sentence, the FBI would get their money back. But Irv and Sid continued to play dumb about that. And Richie is about to be living in the new world where he is the suspect as Irv and Sid redirect suspicion at him by reminding Amato that it was Richie who instructed the transfer of the $2 million and gave the woman the account number. Richie is now experiencing what Thorson experienced in this same office, watching his solid story be broken down by talkative folks who have a better story, as a flashback shows Richie barging into the lawyer's office only to find it belonging to a different... That's a flash forward, Jeremy. And I love this scene because the presumed underdog asserts himself over the bad guy by breaking down all the ways they predicted and undermined them. Richie leaves disgraced, and we get a montage of all the bad people being arrested as Irving narrates, saying, "We gave the $2 million back so Carmine could have a reduced sentence of 18 months. And the movie totally glosses over how you return $2 million of stolen cash to the government without being arrested for stealing it in the first place. Then the movie jumps forward approximately 28 weeks later. Irving and Sidney end up together because movies aren't reality, and they walk down the street to pick up his adopted son from school. Wait, when you marry someone with a kid and then you adopt them, but then you divorce the other parent, you still have custody rights? I don't understand that. I'm just surprised. It's cool. Oddly, this movie seems to want to wrap up every single thread. So we even get a scene of Irving and Rosalind and the gangster boyfriend all kind of apologizing and giving each other props, and it's a little weird. Irving's voiceover says, "Our conning days were behind us." Even more outrageously, he then says, "We got a loan from a bank and we're able to go gallery legitimate." And what the fuck? They never had any actual art qualifications. How did a bank give them a loan for an art gallery? This is the least believable thing in this entire film. Sorry, this is Recotopia, not Cinemasins. And that is American Hustle and 46 movie title drops. What did you guys think?
Yeah. I did not, like I said, I did not like this the first time I watched it. And I think it was because it's in the middle of Oscar season and I was sort of like had to watch this movie to try to get them all in and all this other stuff. And this movie is really hard to, like parse what's going on, especially in a movie theater, and if you've got any kind of distractions whatsoever. So I had no clue what was going on in American Hustle when I watched it the first time. Watching it the second time, having the subtitles, being able to relax, all this other type of stuff, I was now able to understand it and enjoy it. It's funny, I didn't even really consider this until you did this breakdown about whether that was a flashback or flash forward. It's almost like one of those The Office cutaways, right? Because he didn't do it before, or else he would have known before the meeting. Right. Could he have done it afterwards, though? Because at that point, everything's been decided. Yeah. So I don't know where he was given the opportunity to like bust down that lawyer's door later on. I just now realized that was just some sort of, it was a storytelling ploy basically, because I don't think that happens at all. So there's a million places I want to start on this, but I remember when this came out, a lot of people took to task Jennifer Lawrence's age at this time. She seemed way too young to play the character that she's playing, and I think she was like 23 when she made this movie. And in a way, I would say, okay, if you know her age, it seems like she's too young, but she plays this so well. I don't think I ever once thought of her being 23 in this movie. So yeah, Jennifer Lawrence in this movie is really, really good. And I think she's playing a character that a lot of actors don't know how to play. Somehow she's so terrible, but still likable at the same time. Like, I like her character a lot. I would never want to associate with this character ever. But like, the fact is just the way how she kind of, the way she sort of rationalizes everything that she does in this. When, oh, there was a fire. Well, there shouldn't be these kind of products.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, and the microwave, it's like, oh, well, you can't put metal in it. Well, that's the microwave's fault, not mine, even though I was warned about putting metal in it. And I think there's a really fun sort of like callback to that when she's singing Live and Let Die, and you see that burned microwave still in the background. And that whole thing, the cupboards are burned and everything like that.
Yeah.
I love Amy Adams in this movie so much. I think if you wanted to like break down looks and whatever, like looks that they give in the movie, the look that she gives Jennifer Lawrence when she walks towards those gangsters is priceless. Says everything on her face all at once. There's concern, there's anger, there's all sorts of things being told in her look when she sees her walking towards that bar. Everybody in this is good. Christian Bale's kind of doing this thing where he's in the middle of a run of these kinds of like, let's transform my body. And he's always kind of done this, but, he does it here. He does it in Vice. He does it in, what was the other one? Of course, in The Fighter, he like starved himself pretty much. And was it another one, The Machinist, where he did that too. Yeah. But The Fighter and The Machinist, he did that. And then, he does that in The Big Short as well. The Big Short, he's kind of like, he's just got all these, and I love this performance, but a lot of times it's one of those where I know you're performing. That's one thing that's a little bit off about it, but I still love it. I don't think I would change it because he is playing a confidence man after all. So he is always performing, and everything. Jeremy had alluded to earlier the fact that Richie probably should have known when they show the painting that was painted by the forger that he was probably in over his head, but that's like there's a million things in here that should have gone on. Like just the fact that Amy Adams seems to be attracted to him should have been a warning flag immediately. Like, if you know what kind of business that you're getting into, you're dealing with confidence tricksters and everything like that, you should never ever fall for anything that's going on in these situations. And because he's got so much ambition and so much ego about trying to solve this case or trying to make a name for himself and everything, he does lose all the sight of what they've been telling him from the beginning. Start from the feet up. And he's so he's so driven in it. He's doing things that you should take time to do, but he's so driven to get to that, have that name and everything, that I found it really like fun and realistic. Like, he seems to be in charge the whole time because he's Bradley Cooper. We've seen him in charge many times, but he's clearly not, because he's not following the directions that he's been told, or actually just ignoring them because he's, I'm the guy in power here. So whatever you guys do, it doesn't really matter to me. You're going to go in jail anyway and whatever. But I really, really did enjoy his performance here, because it's such a build to this. He has that highest of highs going in that room and like making fun of Louis C.K. and all this other stuff. And it just always seems like this guy's never gonna have anything. He's not gonna have a peg knocked out of him or anything. He's always gonna succeed. But because he didn't start from the feet up, this is exactly what happened to him. And I really like the theme that movie expressed right at the beginning. That's what you got to do, and he didn't do it, and he failed in the end. So, in the end, really, really loved this movie, and I'm sorry Jeremy wasn't here to talk about it.
Hey guys, Jonathan here with a little quick break. Sorry about that, but you might have just heard Chris say he wished Jeremy could have been there, and the reason being because due to some technical difficulties, Jeremy disappeared for a minute and was not available on the recording. He comes back shortly after that, and that is where we're going to pick up from, but just kind of wanted to explain the disturbance in the force, if you will. Enjoy.
We were about to get to Aaron's thoughts on the movie as well.
I remember when this came out, I felt like I liked it more than most, but in hindsight, I think most people thought this was a really good movie. It just kind of slid under the radar for some reason. It feels to me a little bit lost amongst some of the great films that we talk about. But watching it again, I think it's even deeper than I remember. I think there's some real thematic things going on here that I didn't pick up on the first time I watched it, and I do believe this is only my second time watching it. I think I only watched it the one time when it came out. I think this movie has great characters, which is always a plus. All of these people are very interesting to me. It has great moments in the movie that are just exciting and interesting as well. I think Jennifer Lawrence is the standout for me. I think she's incredible at what she's doing here. The whole reaction to the science oven blowing up, and Chris, you mentioned this, the way she deflects that from herself, even though it's the most obvious thing that it's her fault that this happened because she did something specifically she was not asked to do, speaks to that character's character. In a really big way. But I love her performance here. I think one of my favorite moments of the movie is when De Niro speaks Arabic. I think it's just so beautifully just happens. And there's no real foreshadowing to it or Chekhov's Arabic or anything, it happens, and it kind of blew me away. And I love it.
Is Michael Pena trying to think of the right phrases? Is that the reason why it takes him so long to finally answer De Niro?
Here's my take on this. Tell me if you think this is wrong, but this is how what I assumed was going on. He doesn't speak Arabic. He has learned 3 very specific Arabic phrases to say at the end of the meeting.
No, that he would have to know that's what De Niro's going to say, though, to have those specific phrases ready to go.
I don't think they relate directly to what De Niro says, do they?
He says, we do have a deal. This is good. He's repeating back to him exactly what he's asking him to say. So I don't know.
Okay, yeah, it could be. Again, I could be completely wrong.
They never explain it, and I'm just like, what is going on here? Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, that was my take on it, was that he had remembered the phrases, this is a good deal, or whatever he says, and that was just the limit. Like, that he didn't understand anything De Niro was saying, and he just had these things he was.
And he just lucked out on what he knew.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, whatever. It's enough of a plot hole to certainly dig into. But
it'd be better if he just knew Arabic and this.
Yeah, that's true.
What's funny is the voiceover expresses surprise about somebody knowing Arabic, but it's about Tallagio.
Yeah, it's Tallagio.
Who would think an Italian from Miami speaks Arabic?
Yeah.
Not surprised that your FBI guy speaks it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. I think this time through, I think the relationship between Irving and Carmine is the heart of the movie. Like this time through, it really feels like that's part of the reason we started in medias res, I think, is because we want to begin with an understanding of those two in that room and what happens there being so important. And we end with the idea of, your guy knows what I did, like trying to, like the movie takes a lot of time almost celebrating the authenticity of that relationship. Like the idea that there's something valid there that goes beyond the con, and that part of what Irving is learning and experiencing and teaching us in this movie is that authenticity can be found inside of deception. Like that that the two things can coexist. The movie even has, throughout the whole film, I was blown away this time watching it, moment after moment about what is real and what is fake. We start with fake hair. We start with the idea that the reality is he is bald. The fake is he wants, to have hair. And we see the reality is she doesn't have an English accent. The fake is that she, puts one on. The conversation about the difference between the forger and the artist. Who's the better artist? The one that can, create reality through deception, or the one who just creates reality? And the movie seems to have all of these things threaded throughout to say about authenticity and its importance, even in criminal enterprise or, whatever it may be. And I think we're supposed to really feel empathy for that relationship, for that breakup, for that Carmine Irving thing. We're supposed to feel that with Irving. And I was very aware of that this time. It's even in one of my other favorite parts of the movie, which is the running ice fishing story gag. I just think that's such a great story structure thing to do. But what seems to be happening there is we are getting more and more proof that the Bradley Cooper character is just false. There is no authenticity in his falseness. Everything he does is assuming the narrative, assuming it's about him, assuming the end of the story, and not really listening to what's going on.
And think about how many times he wants to hear the end of the story only to interrupt Louis C.K. to come up with his own ending to the story. And I'm like, no wonder he doesn't get to the end of it, because you keep interrupting him every time.
Yeah, it's the difference between fake interest and true interest. Irving is truly interested in Carmine's life, truly wants to know, what makes him tick, who he is, connect with him about, those that dish or whatever that they were talking. Like, that's all real stuff, and that's the difference between him and the Bradley Cooper character. Is Bradley Cooper he's never really interested. Even his interest in Sydney is primal, right? Like, there's nothing really authentic about it. And that's proven when she does present authenticity to him, and he balks at it and he hates it. Yeah. So the movie is just like really smart about the way it's layering in those themes. And I noticed it this time even more than ever, that seems to be the central thing going on, is the idea of there can be authenticity and reality even within manipulation and deception, which is just really interesting to explore. So yeah, I think this is a great movie. I think it's really, really good.
Yeah. Let's get on to the Super Secret Double Features.
Be very, very quiet. Secret? What secret?
Our dirty little secret.
I tell you something I've never told anyone.
I'm going to pick a movie that came out the exact same year. It's The Wolf of Wall Street. The vibes of The Wolf of Wall Street are similar. It's a period piece, basically. It's an investigation into someone doing shady shit, and just the way characters are introduced, the way actions are filmed, and everything. You could put these movies side by side, and it would be a banger of a double feature. So that's my pick.
Yeah, man. If you did that double feature, you almost have to snort cocaine when you're drunk.
Oh, absolutely. It's required.
Before, during, and after, I would imagine. The one I picked is Focus. Will Smith, Margot Robbie. I think this plays in a lot of the same thematic areas. It deals with a love relationship with inside a con. And so, yeah, I felt like it would be a good double feature with this. So, yeah, Margot Robbie double features.
Well, and even are they authentic with each other, or are they playing each other? I love the scene in that movie at the football game where, I mean, it's a little preposterous, but I love the way they explain how they planted the seed in this dude's mind so that they could beat him at the bet. I don't want to spoil the movie. I just did.
The upshot of all of this is that we both picked Margot Robbie movies,
That's
and
right.
that's what you should. That's the takeaway.
think of
You should take away. I've never seen Focus, so may have to.
I think you would enjoy it. I think there's enough there for con movies. Like, there's a lot of con movies, but there's enough there. I think you would dig it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think so too.
I bet I would. All right. All right. What is our homework for next week? It is Aaron's pick. So what are we doing next week, Aaron?
I small recommended this fairly recently, within the last year, and I was thinking about the idea of corruption within the LA police force and LA Confidential, and corruption within the world of con men and that kind of stuff in American Hustle. So I wanted to make you guys watch a movie about corruption in the art world called The Square. And I am so excited to have somebody to talk to about this movie, because it has stuck with me since I watched this film.
You did this before, right?
Yes, I did a small recommend on this recently. So this was the same, 2017, right? Isn't that? I think that's the same year that we were just in. I could be wrong about
2013
that. Oh,
was
2013.
the movie we were in.
Never mind.
Yep.
But anyways, it is Ruben Ostlund, who you may know from Triangle of Sadness. If you watch Triangle of Sadness, that's a Ruben Ostlund movie. And then Force Majeure, which I think is an incredible film as well. And it's the film he made between those two, and I think is just as worthy as conversation as the others. So, yeah, The Square will be our big recommend for next week.
Ever since you popped that thumbnail up on the board, I've wanted to see this movie. So is it available on any streaming or anything?
I believe it's VOD and Hoopla, if I remember correctly. So the library service.
Well, I certainly didn't expect that much Hoopla.
I can do.
You can quote me on that.
I can relook at that. I don't have it in front of me, but if I remember, it is available on Hoopla, and it's certainly available on VOD. So there you go.
Okay. All right. Well, that is going to do it for our very interestingly structured podcast for today. We will blame Jeremy and only Jeremy for that. It's all his fault. He should have been able to keep power on. All right. But yes, next week is The Square. Thank you, chat, so much for coming out and sticking with us, even when we were saying goodbye to you. I wonder if a couple of people got off and never came back again when we said we were about to leave. But some of you guys stayed around, and thank you so much for that. But that's going to do it for this week. We'll see you next time. See ya.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Be a part of the live show by being a member of the Sin Club at Patreon at patreon.com/cinemasins. Chat with us on the Cinemasins Discord at discord.gg/cinemasins or Cinemasins Twitter at Cinemasins, and email any comments or questions to Recotopia at cinemasins.com. That's RECOTOPIA at cinemasins.com.
How long is the hair going to grow, Aaron?
Well, it's been this way for a while. Like, it'll grow, down to about my shoulders, and then we'll trim it back up.
I see. I thought maybe you were going for
No, she asked me. She was like
a Kenny Wayne Shepherd.
Yeah,
kind of
she
thing.
asked me. She was like, "Hey, how long do you want this to grow?" And I was like, "I think this is good. What do you think?" She was like, "Yeah, I think this is good." I was like, "All right, let's go with this then."
I love that. My first guy with long hair thought was Kenny Wayne Shepherd. Hey, I was right, guys. I called it.
You did call
Rory
it.
won the Masters. I alone predicted that the number 2 golfer in the world would win the Masters.
It's very well done by you. If only there were a record of that somewhere. Skeet is wrong. People who say Skeet are wrong.
Well, everybody who joined Blue Sky in its first 6 months is insistent that they call it Skeet, and I'm just never going to join that club.
But why? But you're referring back to something that like it has nothing. It should be like, if anything, so a tweet was what a bird does, right? Well, what's a sky do? Like breeze? Call him a breeze. Call him a wind. I don't know. Break wind. I have no idea. Call it something.
Break wind.
But not a Skeet.
I even broke wind predicting that Rory would win and that Scheffler would not win.
That's right.
Yeah, when you watch golf tournaments and stuff, you just realize like how close everything is to being complete chaos. Possibly, like if 2 or 3 of these golfers make certain shots at certain times, then it's a completely different thing, and it just shows how hard everything is. Because I was sitting there, like, I was actually taking an interest in Oberg and these other guys who were like getting close, and they weren't close at the time when they were showing them, but I was like, man, if they sank a couple of these putts, considering what McIlroy and DeChambeau were doing, they would have gotten back in. I mean, Oberg did. He eventually tied them, but then he just fell completely apart. But like, I mean, some of these shots are so close to being in, and then they just barely miss. That's just shows you how close everything really is. In the end, yes, a lot of these guys who were in it lost by 5 shots or whatever, but they were within fractions of inches of being in the contention. So
it's insane how long I went in my life foolishly thinking I could probably do that. Like I was a pretty good golfer at 16. I could shoot 70 or 71, but like that's nowhere near what I would need to have been at age 9 to be one of these guys. Like this tournament, more than any other, shows me how good these guys are and how hard this game is, especially that course. Like, I don't know what they did differently with the camera work this year, but I felt like you could see the elevation differences better this year than in previous broadcasts, because that course is hilly as hell. And it just walking it, just not even swinging a club or having to hit good shots, just walking that course would be impossible for me. Like, I couldn't do it. So, yeah, these guys are really good, and definitely don't call them not athletes.
And you gotta hit shots sometimes that are like, well, I've got to hit it hard, but not too hard. And I've got to hit it just enough so that the elevation of this hill will take it over once I get to that spot. And you see them sometimes, they're like, okay, they hit it not hard enough, they hit it too hard, they overestimate how the inclines are going. I mean, can you imagine just going out there like with no experience whatsoever and trying to
my God.
What would your score be? Like 190 or something?
Would be okay. So I got it for Christmas. I got a gift certificate to this golf simulator bar, and I went with my friend Jason. We had 2 hours in a bay. I'd never done a golf simulator, and in hindsight, we should have picked a game like they have, like closest to the pin or par 3 contest or what have you. We decided to play Pebble Beach because why not? Pebble Beach is on the machine. That's a famous ass course. And we didn't even finish. We were on the 15th hole, and I was 52 over. It was ridiculous.
Somebody I kind of follow their world. Installed a golf simulator in their home or whatever, and they didn't say the exact price, but it was just like, it's just got to be exorbitant,
Well,
could have gotten another house.
Yeah.
Yes.